This week we're talking about updates to Fastfetch in Libri Office, the new Karton tool for KDE virtualization management. There's some system D news, there's a bunch of terminal tricks, and oh yeah, there's some weird stuff going on with X11. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 206, recorded Saturday, June the 7th. The Untitled episode. It's Saturday, and you all know what that means. It is time for the Untitled Linux Show. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and today we're going to talk about open source software, some hardware stuff, a little bit of drama going on this week, some weird stuff, but it's going to be fun because we're here talking about it. Rob is off being a loser, but we've got Jeff and Ken today, and we are going to have a lot of fun, and it is time to get started. And up first, we're going to let Ken tell us about a lot of command line tips today. Lots of command line tips. We're going to start with the command line.
Lots of goodness.
Yeah. What Fastfetch? Fastfetch is the kind of the next generation successor to NeoFetch.
Actually, I'm going to be honest. This week, Bobby did write about Fastfetch as a replacement for NeoFetch that you can use to show a summary of your system information right in the terminal. Fastfetch released its latest update, version 2.45. Fastfetch is written mainly in C, with a focus on performance and customizability. I practiced that one this week. Currently, it supports Linux, Mac OS, Windows 7 and up, Android, which I'm looking forward to playing with the coming week, FreeBSD, OpenBSD, NetBSD, Dragonfly, Haiku, not the poem, and SunOS. Now, according to Bobby, on Android devices, Fastfetch now supports detecting marketing names for OnePlus devices. You can now enjoy seeing your familiar, consumer-friendly OnePlus branding reflected. GPU detection has also seen a nice boost, particularly for Linux users, with support added for recognizing additional GPU vendors. KDE users running FreeBSD will appreciate the new KDE version detection support in Fastfetch. Now, Fastfetch 2.45 introduces a new JSON-C configuration option. You can see it in the article where it's basically starts off with a logo, open curly bracket, type command draw, then close curly bracket. This way, if you want to customize your output, you can use that. You can directly run custom commands and display their outputs as logos. Fastfetch 2.45 also has new logos for Starry Linux and rel-small, and updated color palettes and logos for Void Linux and Xenia Linux. For more information, I recommend seeing Bobby's article.
Yeah, I went down a rabbit hole just now because when you type in Fastfetch on my machine, it suggests Fast A Fetch. And it's like, what is Fast A Fetch? And that is a tool for doing DNA sequencing, something very, very different. Not at all the same thing.
I ran into this earlier because I was looking something up and I'm like, I know NeoFetch is deprecated, but which other one did I install? And I thought, what the heck? I hit NeoFetch, and on my system it says NeoFetch is deprecated, running Fastfetch instead.
Oh, cool. I wonder if that would work here.
That's on Ubuntu 25.04?
Yes.
Okay.
There's some beta stuff in there too.
I was able to install it on 24.10. And
I didn't install it. It automatically was in there for me.
Yeah. What really fascinates me is if you go to the Fastfetch GitHub page, they're not packaged they're not packaged everywhere. There's a bunch of places where they're not packaged yet, actually. But they have they say here, if Fastfetch is not packaged for your distribution or an outdated version is packaged, Linux Brew is a good alternative. I am so fascinated to see more and more projects recommending using Brew for Linux to get stuff as kind of that extra package installer. It's a very fascinating thing to see.
Yes. Yeah, but it's one of the various replacements, and I thought it was interesting that we were seeing version 2.45 recently coming out.
Indeed.
In the past, I've been trying Machina or Machina. I'm trying to think how you pronounce it. It's
Machina. It'd be
Machina.
Yeah. Which is like Latin for machine, but it's popularized in the Deus Ex Machina term.
But yeah, and it's similar to NeoFetch and Fastfetch. For those of y'all that are listening, I've actually got it as my background for the beginning of the show.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Nice.
All right. So up next, we are going to talk about one of the other tools that everybody uses. Our machines are more than just $1,000 paperwork rates for running Fastfetch and NeoFetch. And one of those things that you might know that you almost certainly have running on your machine is systemd. And there's something
most all
here.
of us.
Almost basically all of us. I don't know. With this show, we probably have a few listeners that are not. But Jeff, what's new in the systemd world for you?
Well, the article linked in the show notes is from How To Geek and written by David Delaney, where he explains why he continues using systemd-based Linux distributions. Now, I found this interesting because I think it parallels discussions around X11 and Wayland that, some people are adamant about never switching. So I thought it was kind of a good analog to what, the systemd and sysvinit to X11 and Wayland. Now, to go into the actual systemd part of it, just to provide some background. So before there was systemd, there was sysvinit, and along with systemd, you find these programs, both of them, at the core of Unix and Linux distributions, managing the initializations of programs and devices. Simply put, it's the system's initialization component, and they're the first daemons to start during boot and the last ones to shut down. Now, that's super oversimplified, but that's the gist of it. Now, sysvinit was introduced with Unix in the 1980s at a time when, operating in systems and environments were much more static. Machines didn't have USB ports and peripherals weren't frequently added or removed. If you were adding something to your machine, you shut it down, added it, fired it back up. And most of the time they were fairly static. One drawback of sysvinit was that it started processes sequentially without parallel execution. Now, systemd emerged in the early 2010s, initially sparking controversy. And while most of the debate has subsided, some distributions like exe, GNU Linux, and Oberon still rely on sysvinit. Now, I personally remember a bunch of those arguments and what was better. And at the time, I was kind of like, well, I don't know enough to say, but it seems like systemd is pretty cool. But I have to let people that are smarter in those areas choose for me. Now, the author, for example, outlines why he switched years ago and remains satisfied with systemd, and one major reason is reliability. He hasn't encountered any issues with systemd, and starting or stopping services is a straightforward process, eliminating concerns about scripts and run levels and things like that. But the author does acknowledge that the service management is only a tiny part of his Linux workflow. For him, the tipping point was Arch Linux's adoption of systemd, and Arch is guided by pragmatism, and as described in the Arch Wiki, Arch is a pragmatic distribution rather than an ideological one. The principles here are only useful guidelines. Ultimately, design decisions are made on a case-by-case basis through developer consensus. Evidence-based technical analysis and debate are what matter, not politics or popular opinion. And so the author goes on and emphasizes the importance of embracing change, and, hardware evolves. Our software evolves, and it needs to keep up with the hardware. So we change for the sake of change, isn't beneficial, which I personally agree with, but we have to critically evaluate both, changes, advantages, and drawbacks before we decide to, whether we're going to embrace it or not. Basically Systemd and Wayland are here to stay. That is until something superior emerges. And when that happens, moving forward is only natural.
Super interesting thoughts. I have not had a problem with Systemd itself. I have endless problems with Systemd Resolve D. And in fact, I'm now looking again at how do I turn this thing off and keep it off? It looks like systemctl mask is the way to do it, and I will be playing around with that after the show.
So what is that? I guess
that is your local DNS resolver.
Okay.
In the past, you would have a DNS host in /etc/resolve.conf. And with Systemd Resolve D, it actually changes all that and runs sort of a local non-authoritative DNS server, which I'm sure for some people work great, but I've had continual problems with it. I would like to be able to actually set my own DNS. Thank you very much.
But you're also not the typical user. You're a little more of a power user than most people.
A little bit, but some of the things that I have problems with, I think other people are going to have problems with too. Things that just used to work that don't work anymore.
So you're not doing crazy things. You're just...
No, in this case, I'm not doing crazy things, and it still is a problem from time to time. So for example, wanting to change your system DNS to another host. Like if I want to troubleshoot a problem by setting my DNS to Google's 8.8.8.8. How do you do that with Resolve D? Like there's probably a way.
Yeah, where do you do it? You're talking about on the local machine itself or at the router?
Well, so that would be the sort of thing that you're doing. You're bypassing the router's DNS to see what's going on. Or maybe you want to use, there are some DNS services that are going to try to block malicious websites for you. Do some DNS filtering, right? And I'm sure there is a way to do that with Resolve D, but I've never found it, and it always annoys me that I can't go into etc/resolve.conf and just set it anymore. That was a good feature, and I am still a little salty that that part of Systemd has gotten rid of it. And that kind of strikes at the heart of what I consider to be the most legitimate complaint about Systemd, and that is that it is an everything and the kitchen sink tool.
You can even use it for restarting Pipewire, as I demonstrated last week.
Well, so restarting services, I think, is in scope. That's what it was originally intended to be. And there are some of these plus kitchen sink features that work well, at least for me, like journald, the logging thing. I have no problem with that. That works well.
And I think to get my keyboard's RGB lighting to work, I had to do a Systemd hack.
Yeah, I can believe it.
Keys 512 says you can remove the symbolic link so it uses the /etc/resolve.conf file.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. Again, I've every time I've been annoyed with it, I've not had time to dive in and understand it. And so I just am perpetually annoyed.
Sort of like when you get that splinter up under your nail that you can't get out.
Yep. All right. So speaking of splinters under your nails, let's talk about Windows 10. And there is a bit of interesting news going on with the, what was it? What was the term? I forget what they called it. There's like an ongoing campaign for leaving Windows 10, ditch Windows 10 or whatever. There's a term for the campaign. 10? End of 10. That's the one. KDE is getting in on the fun. And they're using a little bit different term because their term is your computer is toast. And that is referring to Windows 10 losing support October 14th and the fact that so many computers just don't officially support Windows 11. And so KDE is getting in on the fun. And I had a conversation with Nate Graham this past week on Floss Weekly, and that was one of the things that we talked about, that we may be about to see another odd point in time where a lot of consumers actually do come over to Linux and try to use it. And of course, there is the joke about, he's calling for the year of the Linux desktop. So I would say that we had this already once when netbooks were a thing, and Microsoft pulled the plug on Windows XP. And so then you suddenly had a lot of people getting OEM machines running, at the time, pretty terrible installs of Linux. And so this is what Nate and I were talking about. Like, are we about to enter another era where you start to see OEM installs of Linux because maybe even some new computers don't meet the Windows 11 requirements? And then are we ready for this? Are Linux installs decent enough? And I think if you get the right distro, some of them are. And obviously getting better and better. But it's this end of 10 thing is super interesting to me. I think it's going to be real fascinating to see like how the people, like the public, respond to it. I know a lot of people are annoyed by 11 between recall and the fact that their machines won't run it. They're about to start getting annoy pop-ups that 10 is done. It's an interesting time.
Some are just annoyed because it's an odd number.
Well, there's the Windows curse of the odd number, even numbers. I forget which way it goes.
Odd is good.
Yeah, but 10 is an odd number in Windows world because they skipped over Windows 9.
True.
Because of that curse.
Which it should have been 9, and it actually is decent. But yeah, I got forced to 11 at work. Oh, I talk about it. It's a Fisher-Price operating system. All the buttons got bigger. They space things out. Everything's a pastel color. I hate it.
A lot of people.
I have to run mods. Well, thank you, Steve Gibson, because I got a mod that lets me have the vertical taskbar.
Yeah, nice.
You can't do that. It's like, what is this, 1995? How do you have a UI that lacks so much functionality? I just don't understand it. I think a big opportunity here, though, is Linux is in a lot different place than it was, with the XP switch. And there's a lot of good ones out there. I just hope, I know it's going to happen. I really hate to see when somebody's brand new to the Linux world and someone recommends, here's Bob's distribution. It's the greatest ever. And it's like, no, Ubuntu, Fedora. All the documentation is out there. It's easy to Google. Everybody's got all the wikis and everything. Easy to find, so grandma won't have problems.
You're not having to switch disks to finish loading the operating system.
Those days are gone, far behind us, thankfully.
Yeah. But I mean, that's why I preach those. I mean, are there better ones out there? Oh, you could argue that there are better ones out there. But if you're Googling or Binging or Chat GPTing or whatever you want to do, where are you going to find the most support? Those two operating systems without getting. I mean, you can argue Arch, but I don't want grandma starting out on Arch.
No, probably not.
Yeah, maybe if 6 months under Ubuntu or Fedora, then she can start running Arch and Gentoo and But no, just start out easy.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting also thinking about that. Like Pop! OS used to be on that list. And someone else has observed this, that the guys at Pop! at System 76, they've started putting so much time into Cosmic that Pop! OS itself is suffering just a little bit. And I'm hopeful that, I think it is true. I'm hopeful that when Cosmic comes out, they get back to, updates on Pop! OS and we can re-add that to the list of a distro that is worthy of putting on grandma's machine.
Right. And that was one of the stories I had a couple weeks ago was mentioned that, they're still on 2204. That's why they weren't, because there was a performance that I believe Michael Arable did, performance benchmark is what it was. And they said, why no Pop! OS? Well, they haven't done anything for a while. They're dumping so much time into the desktop. And I don't even know if they want to make their own distribution. If they get Cosmic running great, they could just load it on top of whatever. Do they need an actual
desktop as well?
I'm saying they probably don't. If they get the interface.
It's just System 76 laptops come pre-installed with Fedora running Cosmic. That would be, and I can see that.
Or at the time of ordering, Ubuntu,
you pick
Fedora, Tumbleweed.
Yeah, there's kind of a
Tumbleweed.
There's a maintenance burden there to go and test all of those. One of the things that they've been able to do is not have to test a whole bunch of different distros. And there are some things that they do in Pop! OS specifically for their hardware to make it work together and be happy. But yeah, I don't know. We could see that. I could see it being a Fedora product at some point in the future.
Yeah, I would say never put a rolling distribution on a consumer product like that. That is not, no. You want mainstream
right.
as you can
Leapfrog.
You could. All right. What about KDE, Ken? I like virtualizing. And GNOME has boxes, and I use Virt Manager. Is there anything in KDE that lets me manage my virtual machines?
Well, there may be a promising new project, according to Bobby Borisov again, because he also wrote about this promising new project called Karton. That's spelled Karton, not CAR. It aims to provide a seamless virtual machine management experience tightly integrated with KDE's Plasma desktop environment instead of relying on GTK-based virtual machine managers such as you'd mentioned, Virt Manager or GNOME boxes. Initially envisioned as a QEMU front end, it is now being reimagined as a modern Qt quick or Kirigami-based interface, leveraging libvirt as its backend. This integration promises to abstract low-level virtualization tasks. Karton can already display existing virtual machines, start and stop them, and manage basic installation and deletion processes. Now, Derek Lin, the main apps developer, advanced Karton's capabilities significantly by developing a custom domain installer. This new feature can intelligently parse OS installer disk images and generate tailored XML configurations, simplifying development and future feature additions. Derek plans on working on and polishing the virtual machine viewer. Some of the things he wants to address this summer are support snapshotting. I'm sure we'd all enjoy having that feature. Rework the user interface so that it uses space more effectively. Sometimes you wish that GNOME boxes did that, didn't you? And then, of course, the system monitor to graph CPU and RAM usage of VMs, similar to Virt Manager, and some other configuration options for the installer to support device pass-through. Now, as always, you can learn more about Karton Virtual Machine Manager by reading Bobby's article.
There is a killer feature that if Karton will add, I will switch to it. And that is the ability to paste from the local clipboard onto a virtual machine that just has a command line pulled up. There's no technical reason why you should not be able to do it. Just grab the keystrokes off of the buffer, off of the copy paste buffer, and enter them into the remote machine. And it would make my life so much easier so that I don't have to sit there and copy and paste by hand, type in long strings to make machines on the other side do things. Please make it happen.
I've been doing that with my VM that I've been running.
If you go and install guest editions, you can do it just fine. But if you just have an install that's like particularly if there's no GUI on the other side, you can't do guest editions. And like technically speaking, there is no reason why you can't just, pop a text box up outside of the VM screen, paste into there and hit OK, I'm done. And it just blah, 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 spits all of that text into the machine.
You'd think there'd be some way to pipe that into it?
Exactly. As far as I know, there's not a way to do it. Now, people are telling me various ways that I might be able to do it, and I can go try those. But I'm pretty sure it is not a thing.
Let's see. I currently use Virt Manager
Indeed. Yeah,
I don't remember installing a guest addition into the OpenSUSE.
OpenSUSE probably comes with it by default.
Could be. Automatically installs it as part of it when you load into the virtual.
Yeah, but if you've got a remote machine that's just command line, no GUI at all, I've never found a way to be able to paste text into it, and there are times it would be so useful to be able to do.
For me, everything I run is with, if virtualized, would be have a GUI and guest additions and.
Yep. Although, Jeff, it sounds like you've got some other command line tips that might help here.
I do. So I consider using this as a source for command line tips, and I probably could get several weeks worth of content. But some of these tips I'm going to go over are quite small, and some of them we've touched on in the past. But it's a well organized collection, and I thought it'd be helpful to go over them to make all your command line time more efficient. So there's 13 of these. So 13, run the previous command. If you've ever typed a command but forgot to add sudo, I know I do it all the time, rather than rewriting or arrowing up and editing the line, simply type sudo space ! And this will execute your previous command with sudo. Number 12, run commands without logging them in history. So when you're using up arrow to cycle through previous commands, you may want to run some unique commands without saving it in your history. So then, when you're up arrowing a lot, doing some repetitive things, you don't want that in there. To do this, simply start the command with a space. It won't save in your history file by doing that. Number 11, use the argument from the previous command. So if you've typed a long file name, for example, and there's no need to retype it again, press Alt+ to autofill the argument from your previous command. To replace
that's Alt plus period. Hold Alt plus period.
Alt plus period. Yes, you're right. Sorry about that.
No.
I had it written correctly. Number 10, replace a word in the previous command. So imagine you want to ping Google, but you accidentally typed goggle. Instead of rewriting the command, you can use goggle Google. And this will rerun your last command with the corrected word. So there's no spaces in any of that. Number 9, swap characters before and after the cursor. So if you mistype a command such as ls and you type sl instead, you can press Control plus T, so Control T, to swap the characters and correct it. Aliases. Number 8's aliases. They streamline frequently used commands, but we've covered this extensively in past episodes, so I won't go into details here. Number 7, format data into organized columns. The column command arranges data into neatly formatted columns. For more information, check out episode 59, where Ken covered it in depth. Number 6, run multiple commands consecutively. I know we've covered this, but just as a refresher, you can chain multiple commands using, for example, command 1, semicolon, command 2, semicolon, and so on, which will run each command regardless of success or failure of the previous one. To ensure the next command only runs if the previous one succeeds, use command and the and symbol twice. So command and then command 2. So command 2 will only run if command 1 successfully completes. Number 5, use your fingerprint instead of a password. With the fprintd program, you can enroll your fingerprints, and after setting it up, if you're typing sudo, and normally when it would prompt you to scan or put in your password, you can scan your fingerprint instead. So take a look at the article in the show notes on how to install and enroll your fingerprint. It's really simple, though. Number 4, return to the previous directory. Switch between directories effortlessly by typing cd space dash. This is especially useful when you're frequently navigating between two very long different directories. Sometimes you're hopping back and forth. The dash command will take you back and forth. Number 3, freeze and unfreeze your terminal. So this one's more of a, you might not know what's going on here. So this will help you out. If you accidentally press Control S, because maybe you're used to hitting Control S to save something, and you do it in your terminal, now your terminal may appear stuck. Some of them will give you a notification and tell you what's going on. Some don't. So when you press Control S, it sends the X off signal, which pauses output. To resume, press Control Q, which sends an X on signal to unfreeze it. This is a legacy holdover and is, it's like I said, it's mentioned for someone who accidentally froze their terminal, but it doesn't really have a lot of use today. Number 2, clear the terminal screen. You may already know the clear command, but you can also instantly clear the screen by pressing Control L. Number 1, create nested directories. Using the makedir-p command, you can create multiple subdirectories within a parent directory in one command. So if you got a, level 1, level 2, level 3, you can put them all together and use the -p, and it just makes it all at once. So take a look at the article in the show notes for all the commands and more details, and happy command line surfing.
Yeah, very cool. I like those. There's another one that they mentioned down in the comments. That is Control L is a very quick way to clear your screen
without clearing out the buffer.
Yes. Was that one you mentioned?
I mentioned that was number 2.
I fell asleep while you were talking about that one, I guess, because I have no memory of that. I just saw it in the notes at the bottom and thought it was cool. Oh, well.
I'll take that as such a compliment as long as you hear me talk and you're like, Jeff's okay.
Yes.
The world is right.
Right around 59, I think I was doing a series of command line tips similar to this.
Yeah, it's very cool, though, to have them all in one place. Some of these I have to go back and reference from time to time because it's like, oh, there's that button combo that freezes the screen, which is actually useful if you're if you've got a command that's spitting out a bunch and you need to freeze it to be able to look at it. Now, it's a little less useful these days because most terminals have a way to do that already. But from time to time, it might be something you need to do.
Yeah, scroll back or pipe it, but if you're in a situation you can't. You could you could hit it and.
Yeah, I think
it kind of like a
or typing busier backwards along with pressing the Alt print screen, I think it was.
What does busier backwards do?
REISUB?
Resub. Reboots your machine.
Oh, that's like
it's part of this system break.
Okay,
commands.
yeah. So the system RQ key, right? Yeah, I think a lot of machines actually have that disabled these days.
Systems
I can still use it.
OS is disabling it.
The OS. So like a lot of Linux installs, I think, disable the system rescue key and the different things you can do with it. It has been so long since I've had a system where I had to do something even like that.
So we should probably mention it for people that don't know. Now, I have to hit Control and Alt along with the system key as well. So if your machine is really locked up, rather than maybe hitting the reset button or the power button, I mean, you can't remote into it. You can hit that system break, Control Alt, and then REISUB, and you want to give it a few seconds between each letter. And it gracefully shuts down the machine. It starts like letting go of devices and unmounting file systems and things like that. And then the final B is boot, and sometimes it will unstuck your computer
before you get to that final letter.
Yeah, and the idea.
I've always had to hit the final one. Whenever I've used it, it's locked hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the E is going to send a sig term to everything but PID1. So all of your processes are being told to shut down. And then I is going to, theoretically send a sig kill and forcibly kill them all. S is doing a sync, which ideally writes anything in buffers to disk. And then a U does an unmount on your file system. Those are the two important ones, really. and that is an attempt to not lose data when the power cuts on the system to get it back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fun stuff. All right, so there is a hardware release. I'm curious what you guys think about this. The link I've got is off to the Phoronix article about the AMD Radeon RX 9060, and there's some interesting things with this. For one, from what I understand, the Linux experience on the 9060 out of the box right now is really, really good. Like one of the best deliveries that AMD has ever had as far as, day one Linux support. And so if you've got 6.14 Linux 6.14 and Mesa 25, you're doing well. 25.1 apparently has a few fixes, but it is it's in really good shape. So if you do decide to pick one of these up, you can pretty much just plug it in and go to town if you're running a modern system. As far as performance, well, this is not a flagship card. It is very much a budget card. And so it's not winning a whole lot of awards on performance, although in kind of its price range right now and versus the equivalent from last generation, like it is decent. The 16 gig version is decent. I actually saw a few reviewers really ranting about how bad the 8 gig version is. And I'm not sure the price difference to even really comment on what that 8 gig card is for. But from everything I've been seeing, you don't want the 8 gig unless you are just absolutely not wanting to spend any money. In which case, you're probably going to be good with the embedded GPU that's already in your processor. Because I think at this point, basically all of the processors you can buy are going to have an embedded GPU of some sort. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious. Are you guys kind of watching this? Did you see the reviews come out on the 9060? Do you have any thoughts on it?
Too expensive for my blood.
I mean, for a budget card, it's still like $349, which is kind of a lot.
Performance-wise, it does good. Yeah, like you said, it's not a high-end card. It's not, nothing earth-shattering. The biggest thing is how it's looked at is based on the prices. It's, because you have MSRP, which now is kind of a elusive target, and what are the aftermarket, the partner cards going to be, and how much more, but you've got things like NVIDIA, who's cutting back silicon from TSMC, which means they're not cutting back silicon. They're making AI chips instead. They're redirecting silicon. They're not stopping anything. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with the card. It's a solid performer. It's just a question of the value. There's a lot of people saying it should have been a little bit cheaper. Should have been like a $299 card or something like that. It should have, which might be a pipe dream, but
I mean, there's some simple supply and demand going on here. If silicon space is being used in fab runs for doing AI cards, then that more aggressive demand is going to make the supply more expensive. I mean, we've seen it multiple times. We saw it with Bitcoin. Now we're seeing it with AI. There are these other factors that are driving up the price and down the availability of video cards. And it's kind of unfortunate to see. Like, it's kind of a bummer for gamers. You got to pay more for these things, but it's just the way it is. The realities of the economy and the market.
Oh yeah, but yeah, as everybody said, do not buy the 8 gigabyte card. Never ever buy it. Even well, you lock yourself out of 1440 and higher resolution gaming, and even if you're like, well, I'm only going to 1080p, that's all I'm going to do. There's some games that even it doesn't do as well because modern games take more memory, and as they put in some AI for your computer generated opponents and all that kind of stuff, it can take a little bit, and they'll have some frame stuttering and 1% lows that are worse on the 8 gig than the 16. And otherwise, they're identical cards. There's no clocking difference. It's simply how many chips they put on the board. But otherwise, they're identical. And
I wonder.
It's just.
So
I wonder what the thought process was behind selling the 8 gig version.
They were trying to capture a specific market segment.
Yeah.
And NVIDIA was doing it. So somebody in a suit somewhere, a suit and tie, thought, well, we got to do that too. That's what we're going to do. And it's somebody that probably has never really gamed. They don't, I played Minecraft once and I remember Pac-Man. That was pretty cool.
How much are you saving between the price-wise between the 8 and the 16 gig?
I don't remember. It's like $50 or less. It's not much.
Yeah. You think about the amount of RAM that's actually in there, and I honestly kind of wonder whether they're making a little bip more money on the 8 gig card than they are the 16 gig card. Because, it's not like we're overflowing with silicon, right? And so every one of these cards that they put an 8 gig in, they're competing against putting that, releasing a 16 gig card. I guess what might happen, so these are just the reference cards. What might happen is the big guys like XFX and them may just not sell the 8 gig or make very few of them if this is really kind of the overwhelming market response to it, is that the 8 gigs not worth it.
Oh, yeah. And if you see 8 gigs, keep in mind, it could be a contractual obligation. There could be
Yeah, that's true.
AMD says you're going to make X number of 8 gig cards, even if you really don't want to. You're like, geez, I don't want to, but I have to. So,
Yes,
some of the,
that's true.
Keep in
That
mind,
sort
some
of
goofy
happens.
things can be contracts that we don't have visibility into that. You just never know.
That is true, and that is a good call out.
But he didn't do a test on the AMD Raphael, did he?
What is Raphael?
That's the integrated CPU or GPU with my AMD Ryzen 7.
Ah, yes. Those are doing rather well. I mean, that's what's in the Steam Deck and some other devices. People really seem to have good success with those.
And you could even argue a lot of the $100, $200 cards probably have gotten ate up with integrated GPUs being
Absolutely.
at that level of performance. So you kind of eat into that bottom level.
No, I absolutely remember the days when you would go pay, $75 to $150 to get a discrete GPU, not because you wanted a game on it, but just because you wanted multiple monitor outputs. And man, though that level of GPU just really doesn't exist right now. Or if it does, it's something utterly ancient that you really don't want to run anyways. And I think you're right. It's because every CPU has an integrated GPU in it, and just about every motherboard has a decent collection of outputs. I mean, you go look at Amazon, and almost every motherboard is going to have HDMI, DVI, and a good portion of them will have VGA as well. So, it's just a hard sell.
And here's something to look forward to. There's rumors out there that on the other end, AMD might be going to release, maybe call it a 9800, 9900 XT.
An actual flagship.
It won't compete with the 5090 or the 6000, but the 6000 is not a consumer card anyway. It's a pro card.
Yeah.
They're talking it might trade blows with the 5080, but it's still very unknown if they're going to do it. But it sounds like the RDNA 4 silicon is well up to the task, so they could crank it up and go. And when you hear about the 9700 XTs, it sounds like there's a lot of headroom in them, and there's they could really fine tune the process a bit and really let them get their legs under them and just really
it'd be
after it.
Really interesting to see.
And has that been documented?
That's rumor at this point.
It's rumor.
Yeah.
That's why I said
it hasn't been written up anywhere with any editor.
Not with an editor. It's
no place that is announcing it as news. Right. There are plenty of places that are talking about it as rumors, presenting it as rumors.
It's forums, it's Twitter, it's known leakers kind of thing. I think the closest thing to a quote official news would probably be Moore's Law is dead. He talked about it from some sources, and some of this is when you hear these leaks, they might have that 9800 XT, and it could but they're also evaluating what's the market, what's it going to cost to sell, what's our current silicon allocation, can we even make this without totally disrupting everything and breaking contracts? So there's a lot that goes into these decisions, not just can we make it. It's like, is it going to benefit us to make it? Because they could say, well, okay, 3% of the people will probably buy it. We're going to have to change these contracts with TSMC or Samsung or whoever they've got their foundry business on some of these allocations with. Can we buy more? Do we have to change a contract and it's going to cost us for a change? And there's a lot that goes into that.
Then the question is, what office suite do they use for writing those contracts up with?
I can tell you. I assume that was... Yes. I assume that was actually an attempted segue into our next topic. I don't think they're using LibreOffice, but we can go ahead and talk about what's new in LibreOffice 25.2.4. What's up?
Well, Jonathan, according to Marius Nestor, it's been about 5 weeks since the last time we even talked about a point release of the latest LibreOffice 25.2 series. This week, the Document Foundation announced the general availability of LibreOffice 25.2.4 as, yes, the fourth maintenance update. It addresses various bugs, crashes, and other annoyances reported by users in an attempt to improve the overall stability and reliability of this popular open source, free, and cross-platform Office suite. We may even be surprised to find some law firms or contracting offices do use LibreOffice. Now, if you're into numbers, then you might be interested to know that a total of 52 bugs were addressed. Details about the various bug fixes and all can be found in the RC1 and RC2 changelogs. A couple of the fixes that caught my eye include application freezes on Save As. When you're doing a KFX on X11. This was patched by Michael Weghorn. I hope I said that correctly. Another one was all apostrophes changed to Asian font when there is Asian text in the paragraph. This one was patched by Jonathan Clark. So thank you, gentlemen, for helping to improve LibreOffice. As always, Marius' article has details on how to upgrade or download LibreOffice 25.2.4, as well as links to the changelogs if you do want to look at everything that was updated.
People are still using X11?
We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. So it humors me that they always say in these release notices that for enterprise class deployments, TDF recommends a LibreOffice Enterprise Optimized version. And they don't have a link. That's what really surprises me. So, surely they get money back from these guys that do this, or at least patches back, or something. And they don't have a link to any of them, and that always surprises me.
Is that maybe it's under the contact me?
Maybe.
Yeah, but you think something like that should be out front.
Yes. They need to make that link obvious and hard to miss. LibreOffice Enterprise. Who makes it? What is it? What is it for? Oh well. It's not for me, that's for sure. Definitely don't need it. It is nice though to see that LibreOffice still is continuing to come out on like a clockwork basis. It has been a long time since the last OpenOffice release. So keep that in mind, guys. If you're running OpenOffice, it is time to switch. You are running very old, in some cases, very broken code. So there's some new code out there, Jeff, and it's Bcachefs. This is we didn't. Are you going to talk about the kernel drama around Bcachefs and the maintainer?
I wasn't, unless you're talking about losing file systems.
No, okay. You talk about this. I'm going to get the link, and we'll talk about that too. But take it away and tell us about Bcachefs.
Okay. So this week I have two articles discussing Bcachefs. Now pardon me. This is a file system I've been tracking for a while, and Bcache-fs is a copy-on-write file system designed to be modern, robust, and high-performing. Ideally, it aims to replace file systems like ZFS while maintaining performance levels compared to, for example, ext4. And it boasts many built-in features, and it's a lot of it can do a lot of stuff. And I'm not going to go into them here. It's not really the focus of the article. Instead, I want to focus on what's new. So with Linux kernel 6.16, several improvements have been introduced. So they've enhanced performance for snapshot deletion. They've faster device removal, reduction of redundant accounting updates, making journal commits more efficient. Bcache-fs can now implement incompatible features, which can be enabled at runtime via sysfs. So that would be like if you're beta testing something, or you're trying to really do some developer work, it's now easier to do that. Additionally, updates have been made to its repair and self-healing mechanisms. For example, recovery passes now run in the background whenever errors are detected. Now, the first article in the show notes provides a detailed breakdown of these changes along with the original pull request on the kernel mailing list. So you can see all the details of every little thing that they wanted in that pull. Now, the second article covers even more updates leading up to right before the RC1 came out. They had a second round of pulls. So this includes stack usage improvements. Now, there's a lot of various repair enhancements they put in there, and a critical fix for a serious bug in Linux 6.15 that could cause data loss. Now, the developer, Kent Overstreet, said the following: "This took longer to debug than," and this is a quote, "This took longer to debug than it should have, and we lost several file systems unnecessarily because users have been ignoring the release notes and blindly running fsck-y. Debugging required reconstructing what happened through analyzing the journal, when ideally someone would have noticed, hey, fsck is asking me if I want to repair this, and it usually doesn't. Maybe I should run this in dry mode and check what's going on." As a reminder, fsck errors are being marked as autofix once we've verified in real-world usage that they're working correctly. Blindly running fsck-y on an experimental file system is playing with fire. Up to this incident, we've had an excellent track record of not losing data, so let's try to learn from this one. This is a community effort, and I wouldn't be able to get this done without the help of all the people QAing and providing excellent bug reports and feedback based on real-world usage. But please don't ignore advice and expect me to pick up the pieces. If an error isn't marked as autofix and it is happening in the wild, that's also something I need to know so we can check it out and add it to the autofix list. If repair looks good and I haven't been getting these reports, and I should be, since we don't have any sort of telemetry, I am absolutely dependent on user reports. Now, I'll be spending the weekend working on new repair code to see if I can get a file system back for a user who didn't have backups. So the second article also includes a link to the second pull request, and you can have all the details in there of every little thing that's getting included. But one important takeaway, and I want to emphasize this, Bcache-fs remains experimental and is not yet marked as stable. If you're using it, always have backups and only store data, use it to only store data you're comfortable potentially losing. Now, this applies to any beta or experimental software. You tread with care or wanton abandon based on the quality of your backups and the value of your data.
Interesting stuff. So they broke it, but I mean, so Bcache-fs is still like an experimental file system, right? It's still got that big asterisk on it.
Yes, it is.
So this
is not ready for production.
Right, and they said don't run fsck, which is basically a file system check, and -y says, hey, repair this. Well, that's not a good thing to do, and so some people lost some data, or possibly, but it was kind of user error as well because they weren't following the directions. They kind of just oh, sure, this sounds good. I'll click yes, and oops, not what you should do.
You're not supposed to always click yes?
Indeed.
Yeah.
No. No. The answer to that is no.
Yeah.
You don't want to always click yes.
You don't always want to click no either.
Indeed. All right. So the developer that I was thinking about is actually Keys Cook. That is not the file system guy, but he did have a bit of a run-in with Linus just over a week ago, and so in this case, the original email from Linus is the one that I've got linked, and Keys has the snippet here from Keys is, please pull this small handful of hardening fixes. And Linus responds with, WTF, Keys, you seem to have actively maliciously modified your tree completely. There are completely crazy commits in there that are entirely fake. And so, it was very nice for a Linus rant, but it was a bit of a Linus rant. Completely unacceptable in all caps. But they did go ahead and disable Keys' account until they figured out what was going on, because, like they said, it looked like it could have been malicious. And come to find out, it was like a combination of a dying SSD and a problem with a script that one of the other maintainers wrote, and some other things going on, like a perfect storm of problems in Git, not problems with Git itself, but problems in tooling around Git that created this like bad merge request that caused a whole bunch of extra work for multiple people. Anyway, that's what's going on. I'll get the link to it if people want to read through that. It's fairly interesting to see all the things going on. Again, it's kind of taking a look at the sausage being made there in the kernel. And so that is pretty interesting. There is another bit of sausage being made that's weird, and that is X11. So this is the last link that I've got in the show notes. And this is Enrico Weigelt, and he has been banned from freedesktop.org for daring to try to maintain X11. And this is a story. It's wild. So as we've talked about many times over the last few years, the time of X11 has basically come to an end. The vast majority of developers that were working on X11 are now working on Wayland. We're now actually really close to the point to where Wayland is ready for prime time. That's kind of a funny thing to say because most people are on Wayland by this point, I think. But lots of problems have been worked out. They worked out some of their personnel and bureaucracy problems in Wayland. We have Valve to thank for that, actually. My Floss Weekly interview with Nate Graham was kind of funny because I told him I have this conspiracy theory that Valve came along and said that they were going to fork Wayland if Wayland didn't shape up and play ball. And he's like, it's not a conspiracy theory, man. That's what happened. It's like that happened out in the open. They did fork it. It was called the Frog Protocols. It's like, yep, that's kind of what we thought. So thank you, Valve. Anyway, so that's been going on with Wayland, and you've got Weigelt, who has been working on trying to keep things cleaned up in X11. And he got banned from the freedesktop.org GitLab infrastructure. Now, obviously, there's a lot like behind the scenes here that is unclear. I don't know why exactly he got banned. I don't know what the communication was between him and the other people there. I do know that freedesktop.org has been a little overexcited about banning people. We have seen this in the past, that they have dropped the ban hammer on active developers in ways that was probably not appropriate. So that may be what's happened here. It is kind of, I don't know that I would say that it's, well, so multiple big companies like Red Hat are trying to end support for X11. They want to move away from having to support X11. They're going to move into the Wayland future, which is fine. Like, I think that's obviously the direction that the Linux world is going. It may or may not be sort of a heavy-handed attempt here by banning him, with a heavy-handed attempt to make that happen and to prevent ongoing maintenance. I don't know. Like, the whole thing is just weird at this point. And yeah, I don't know exactly how this is all going to shake out. I don't think so that he has now forked X11. He's calling it X Libre. I really don't think there's much of a future for it. I think too many things are just moving in the Wayland direction at this point. But yeah, it's interesting to see, and we'll see what happens. If maybe there is a future for X11, maybe we'll have some niche distros that are Upstart and X11 and System D free and Wayland free. I don't know. We'll see.
Here, I'll play devil's advocate and give a plausible. I don't know if this is the case or not, but I'm just throw this out here that the bigger company, bigger companies are looking at this, and back when they when they said, okay, we're starting over, we're done with X11, we knew that there's security holes in it. It is structurally configured without security, or at least there's a lot of holes in it. And the reason they did Wayland is because they have to totally rewrite it. They're like, the amount of revision we'd have to do, and the amount of people that truly understand how it works, there is literally a handful.
Yes.
So there could be a danger in forking it that someone says, oh, look, I'm adding all these features, but they don't really understand everything that's going on. And they wouldn't want anybody having this catch on and then have all these security issues and, ability to have malicious things happen, because, I mean, he might have the best of intent, but nobody really, the people that truly understand X11 are working on Wayland. That is the group, the core group that understood X11 is now doing Wayland. And they're the ones that architected it. And just for security and health of the Linux ecosystem, it might be like, we don't want this confusing people. We don't want people, even going down this path.
I would say that it's probably a bad thing for someone to claim that X11 is maintained. So, like in this case, X Libre, to make the statement that X Libre is being maintained when it is just one guy working on it who may not understand it very well. Like I get that, and that may be a big part of it. It's probably also true that the fact that he went and gave an interview to Lunduke did not help his cause. Like I don't think that's a conspiracy theory to point that out and to say that might have something to do with it.
He went to Lunduke.
Apparently,
Lunduke didn't contact him.
I don't know which way it went. I've got thoughts about that. I would say talking to a person online is not something you should get banned over, and I think people are like I said when I told the story, the people there are a little ban happy. So yeah, other than that, I guess I don't really have anything to say about that.
Which is
you're saying
little band
it
happy
could be,
or big band happy?
I don't know. I'm pretty big band happy.
So you're saying it could have been political reasons.
It's possible. There are. Well, so it's very likely to be a combination, right? Okay, so this guy comes along and he's going to try to revive X11, which the people that really know it say is a dead-end project. But because he's going to say this is supported, this is maintained, that's actually kind of a magical world in Fedora land and in Red Hat land, because packages that are not maintained, you can't include in Fedora, and therefore are not going to get included in Red Hat. But if someone comes along and says, no, this is maintained, well, then you're allowed to continue updating those packages in Fedora and then make it into Red Hat. So like there are some complicated knock-on results on this. And so like I'm sure that was part of it. They were looking at this and going, it's just not something that we want to do officially as part of the freedesktop.org. But then like among certain groups of people, you do not win yourself any brownie points by, being a known associate of Lunduke, right? That's just the reality. It's the way it is. And again, people have different opinions on whether that's right or wrong. I don't love the idea of banning people just because they're associated with someone you don't like. But again, that I'm sure was part of the decision. So,
well, it throws a little shade on it, just that he had an initial public interview, I would think, if you're going to fork it and really try to do it right, you're going to fork it, research it, maybe have a call for developers or so. I don't know. It seems like there's maybe a little bit of grandstanding going on here, but that's I really don't know much of anything about it other than what we've just said here.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably fair. It's probably also fair to say that grandstanding about a project is one of the ways to attract developers to it. So, I mean, it kind of can go either way.
I think I'd have to hear the interview just to find out whether was it a lot of, hey, accurate. I need help with this, I'm looking for this, or was it, look at me, So I'm not saying it wasn't doing that. I just like, when I hear something like that, I'm get my extra deep skepticism goggles on and really dive in to go, what's really going on here?
Yes.
Talking about those X-ray specs you get from the back of a comic book?
Yeah, those are the ones.
Yeah.
One thing I don't understand, I'll probably have to research a bit more after the show, is why he's comparing himself to Keith Packard.
That
goes back to the X86?
X386.
X386.
Or X386, yeah. And it forked and turned into X.org. And
yeah.
So we're going to see it turn back into X386 now?
Doubtful. Yeah,
X86 might not be X86 in a few years.
Yeah. I mean, X86 doesn't exist anymore. It's all X86 64. I don't remember the story with Packard. I know he was part of forking it. I don't remember whether he got actually banned by somebody or not. Yeah. In 2003, according to Wikipedia, a completely reliable and unbiased source, according to Wikipedia, he got ejected from X386 in 2003. And I don't know the details behind that. That was actually sort of before my time. It was a couple of years before I really started following the open source Linux desktop.
Yeah, I remember choosing like, oh, do I want Xorg or X386, and not at the time not really knowing what the difference was, and I was pretty new on Linux back then. And
back then it was, do I want Windows or Linux?
Yeah. How can I manage to get Linux installed on this this Windows laptop and try to get the drivers to work? That's really what the challenge was then.
Yeah, and all the weird custom hardware, and everybody rolled their own non-standard stuff. And yeah,
now,
the good old days.
Yes.
Here's the scary thought. How many Xorg systems are we going to see a decade from now because of embedded systems?
Probably a few.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some embedded systems don't actually even run Xorg. You can do it without it, just on direct frame buffer. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not gonna speculate too much on that. Let's move into some command line tips. We've churned about the X11 drama long enough. Let's get into something a little bit more
fun?
solid and concrete. Yeah, a little more fun. We're going to let Ken kick us off with more about the Pipewire command line interface. What are we doing this week?
Well, this week I'm covering how to create a single node as either a virtual audio source, or in my example, I'm going to show how to create a virtual audio sink. Let me go ahead and bring up my command line, my terminals here. I've actually got two running in OpenSUSE. For those of y'all listening, I've switched to the display in my VM, where I've got PW top displaying in the top terminal. The basic format of the command is pw-cli space create-node. Then you follow it by the factory name that's going to be used to create the node and the properties that you want to assign to it. In my particular case, I'm doing this from the command line today instead of interactive because it lets me do a bit more with it. But I'm going to be creating a adapter node. The properties I'm going to give it are factory.name equals support.null-audio-sync. Next property is node.name will equal my-sync. Then we have media.class will be equal to audio/sync. Object.linger equals true. Any idea why I'm doing that?
You don't want it to go away.
Correct. Then for the audio dot position, I'm putting in the properties of front left, front right, front center, low frequency equivalent. Subwoofer, anybody? Rear left and rear right. Also, monitor.channel-volumes equals true. Monitor.pass-through equals true. Now, when I hit enter, let's make sure I'm in that kernel. If y'all listening, the PWDOP just popped up with a new device with the name of MySync. And it's got ID of 75. In fact, if we do a PW-CLI info 75, we get quite a bit of information. Let me go ahead and scroll back. And you'll see that the permissions that it receives is read, write, execute, and metadata. It's showing 6 input ports and 6 output ports. Right now, it's in a suspended state. And as we look at the properties, you'll see some of the ones that I created. Now, it automatically added some, like for factory.id equals 19. The no.driver equals true. Clock.quantum-limit equals 8192. And it's also created some parameters for it. Now, let me quickly show you how that looks in my QPW graph. For those of y'all listening, it is showing the MySync. It's not connected to anything just yet. What I'm going to do in a minute is use the pwlink command to connect it to the playback left and right channels on my built-in audio analog for my virtual machine. And I prepared for this by go ahead and having them typed up so I can just copy them. Makes it a little safer. There's the left channel. And the format of the command is pw-link space dash capital L, again to linger, MySync :monitor front left to the ALSA outputs playback front left. And the next command is to do the front right. Now, if we go back to and you'll see that the pipewire top updated to show that connection, as well as in QPW graph. Now, here's what interesting is, with that set up, I can open VLC, select, I'm going to use one that I've recently played when I was testing this out. And now I'm hearing that, unfortunately, y'all aren't. But if we go back, you'll see that it's showing VLC connected in there too. And here's how it looks in QPW graph. And I am going to mute that for a minute because I got it a bit loud. But for those of y'all listening, again, VLC's got a 5.1 output connection to MySync, and then it's just using the front left and front right to go out to my audio. So if you've got a system where you say have 5.1 audio output as one of the options, you could use this for getting other devices to automatically convert for the 5.1 if they don't automatically.
Very cool.
And of course, as demonstrated, I want to say last episode, once everything's said and done and you don't want to use it anymore, guess what you can do?
Delete it or destroy it.
Yep. Oh, I'm not at the interactive command line, so I need to include pw-cli. And it disappears. And what do you think happened with the VLC output?
Oh, it automatically went back to default.
Yep.
Ah, cool. I sort of thought it would have just,
left it hanging?
Yeah, it would have hung, which is a thing too. Pipewire will totally let you do that. Yeah, very
just
cool.
a total side note. When he goes, oh, see, look, you can kill it. You could have muted him, and then everybody that was just listening,
that would have been fun.
We lost Ken. Where did Ken go?
That would have been fun, but oh well, missed opportunities.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, you've got a command line tip in here about Kubuntu.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I covered the new version of Plasma 6.3.5 that was releasing, and the upcoming 6.4, which was in beta. Now, so I run Kubuntu. It's the KDE version of Ubuntu, and I typically enable the backports repository, which I thought was active. So I have and just for clarification, I have a server system, which I run a lot of things on, which is on very, LTS long, very stable, very, very tested software. So it just runs quietly. And then on the machine I use now, it's like a gaming system, and I sometimes mess it up and have to reinstall. And, it's the one that I can just totally mess up and it's okay. Now, I looked and I thought, after seeing that, I checked what version of Plasma I had. And I think it was like 6.3.4, 3.3. And I'm like, what the heck? Why aren't I receiving the latest Plasma updates? So I looked on how to install 6.3.5 or even 6.4 in my system. Now, I initially assumed it might be a separate installation process because not everything comes through backports, because sometimes they say, well, it's going to be too big of a change to your base OS, so they don't include it. You have to install it separately. But I later discovered that despite thinking my backports were enabled, they actually weren't. So the link in the show notes provides instructions on installing Plasma 6.3.5 for Kubuntu and for 25.04. And it's a simple process. It's just a sudo space add-app-repository and then the repository name. And then you just do a full system upgrade. Now, additionally, at the bottom of the page, there's a link to install the Plasma 6.4 beta, which requires a slightly different add apt repository command. But you do a full upgrade again and reboot, and now you're in the beta version. Now, if you decide the beta version isn't working for you or encounter issues, you can remove the PPA and revert or downgrade your packages. But if you're interested in testing the latest Plasma versions on Kubuntu or another Ubuntu-based distribution, check out the article, the show notes for the full command line instructions. I will say that so far, Plasma 6.4 beta has been very stable for me. But keep in mind, if you go and look at what version you're on, it won't display as 6.4. It will show something like 6.3.91, as it doesn't get the 6.4 label until it's officially released as stable. Also, enabling backports means you receive the latest software intended for the 25.10 release, which includes beta software, which, other things which may include some instability. For example, I have the Ken story on Libri Office 25.2.4. I have it. There's some phasing stuff, so it won't install it quite yet, but it's queued up in there, so it's waiting for a library or something to drop before I can fully install the latest Libri Office as well. So it's beta, but sometimes it's fun to live on the edge a little bit.
Sometimes it's fun, indeed.
And it looks like the Tumbleweed virtual machine is using KDE Plasma 6.3.5.
Yeah, 6.4 is still a week and a half out from release, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Mine actually says 6.3.91.
And are you on the 6.15 kernel?
I don't know what I am on 6.14.
Yeah, I think it just recently updated to the 6.15 the other day when I was doing the updates.
Cool. All right. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, with backports, kernels sometimes don't upgrade because it's one of those bigger. There's somewhere in there. There's a line where it can change the underlying OS too much. They won't turn it on, and you have to actually install it separately than just getting it through the backports PPA.
Interesting. Probably something they detected breaks in there. Or maybe it's just a never more than X number of versions. Who knows?
Could be.
All right. So I've got a real quick tip for you. It's kind of an explainer of a couple of different Git commands. Find myself doing this quite a bit here recently, doing some development work. And it's git fetch, Fetch, and git pull, Pull. And so git fetch is kind of the more fundamental command here. And so git, of course, is dealing with source code essentially inside of blockchains, not cryptocurrency blockchains. Git existed before cryptocurrency did, but it uses the same idea of, hashed chains of blocks. What a git fetch does is it goes out to what the origin, so like the home address of wherever your Git folder is. In modern days, it's a lot of times it's going to be GitHub, right? GitHub / whoever owns it / the name of the project. Git fetch is going to go out there and say, hey, pull down all of the updates that you've got into sort of the Git hierarchy that I've got on my local machine. So all of this only works after you've done a Git clone. You do a Git clone first, and it makes a local copy of the remote thing. Then you do a git fetch, and it goes out and it says, okay, pull all the updates down. But what a git fetch will not actually update the tree that you're currently looking at. So it sort of syncs your big Git object, but it doesn't sync the code that you're actually looking at. So the code that you've checked out does not change when you do a git fetch. A git pull is a git fetch immediately followed by an automatic either git merge or git rebase. And I think it does at least on my systems, I think it does a rebase by default, unless it detects that there's going to be any kind of funny business. Right. So if it's going to end up in an actual like manual merge or rewriting anything, it'll stop and it'll say, hey, you need to make a decision here. Do you want Git to try to do a fast forward, or do you want to do a merge, or do you want to do a rebase? Which at some point in the future, we'll talk about the difference between a merge and a rebase and a fast forward, because that is interesting stuff in and of itself. But that's what a fetch is. And so if you're going to like check out another branch that exists on that remote, doing a git fetch first is useful, because then you're going to know like the up-to-date references, like where the actual head on that branch is at. But if you're wanting to, like if everybody's on the same branch, you want to just update it, a git pull is the way to go. I am slowly learning more and more about Git. And it has been a long time. I'm sort of proud of this. It's been a long time since I have gotten a Git repo in such a bad state that I had to just RM the whole thing and reclone it. I've avoided that for a long time now.
Did you jinx yourself?
I hope not. I have done it. I've had to do it. Ken, I think your fire alarm's going off or something. It stopped. That's hilarious. All right.
The great thing is I can't hear it with the headset on.
I'm not sure you could hear it with the headset off, my friend.
You've been talking to my wife.
Yeah. All right. I think that's about it. I'm going to let each of the guys get in the last word, whatever they want to talk about or plug. We'll let Ken go first, and hopefully his battery backup will behave.
Yes, I hope so too. Though it has been coming in handy during the tornado warnings we've had recently. Had some power fluctuations. But as a reminder, definitely you want to back up and keep that 3 backups, 2 different types of backup, and 1 offsite.
Absolutely. I like it. Backup, backup, backup. All right, Jeff.
I'd like to say it's pretty cool. I've had several people reach out to me on LinkedIn. They connect through Rob. So whenever Rob's here, you can just follow him. If you find Rob, you'll find me. But other than that, I just have Poetry Corner. My data is gone. Water and laptops don't mix. I should have backed up. Have a great week, everybody.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right. Thank you, guys. And if you want more of me, you can, of course, find me on Hackaday. That is the Floss Weekly show from this past week, and we had a lot of fun with that. It's hackaday.com/floss. We'll take you directly to that. And then there's also the security column that goes live on every Friday morning. Other than that, we sure have a lot of fun here at the Untitled Linux Show as well. And we appreciate everyone that comes along with us. We'll be back next week. But want to say thank you to everyone, whether you get us live or on the download. And then one little programming note before we go is you should think about Club TWiT. It is roughly the cost of a cup of coffee per month. And if you want to support the network and the show, and or you want to get ad-free versions of it all, Club TWiT is the place to go. Appreciate it. We'll see everybody next week. Bye.
From Silicon Valley boardrooms to tomorrow's AI breakthroughs, if you need to keep up to date with tech, you need TWiT.tv. At TWiT, we are tech experts who understand what's happening and can keep you in the loop. And we do it in a thoughtful, informed, and fun way. Start your Sundays with This Week in Tech, a roundtable of tech journalists and people in the know with a rundown of the week's most important tech news. But that's not all. All week long, you can stay ahead of security threats with Steve Gibson and Security Now. Keep up on all things Apple with MacBreak Weekly. Listen to the most informed Microsoft experts in the world with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell on Windows Weekly. Our flagship shows feature tech's most respected voices, giving you the insight you need to understand and benefit from the changing world of technology. We give you analysis you won't find anywhere else, so you can make smarter business decisions and take advantage of the technologies transforming your world. Whether you're a CEO, IT professional, or simply passionate about technology, TWiT's network of shows gives you the edge you need in today's digital landscape. Don't miss a minute. Subscribe to TWiT.tv today.